Dozens of world leaders met at the UN in New York to endorse Palestinian statehood, boycotted by Israel and the US. French President Emmanuel Macron announced France's recognition and urged preserving a two-state solution. Over 3/4 of UN members now recognize Palestine, including Luxembourg, Malta, Belgium, and Monaco. Israel continues its military campaign in Gaza amid rising tensions. The US and Germany stress that recognition should follow negotiations, not precede them. Dozens of world leaders gathered at the United Nations on September 22nd to endorse Palestinian statehood, a landmark diplomatic shift nearly 2 years into the Gaza war. The session, convened in New York, was boycotted by Israel and the United States, but marked a rare moment of consensus among European, Arab, and other nations. French President Emmanuel Macron, opening the meeting alongside Saudi Arabia, announced that France would recognize Palestine. He said the international community must preserve the possibility of a two-state solution with Israel and Palestine living side by side, drawing lengthy applause.
Time has come. This is why, loyal to my country's historic commitment to the Middle East, for peace among Israeli people and Palestinian people, I declare that France recognizes today the state of Palestine. The recognition of the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people takes nothing away from the rights of the people of Israel, which France has supported from day one, the respect of which it is as much committed precisely because we are convinced that this recognition is the only solution that will allow for peace for Israel.
Israel's government, the most right-wing in the country's history, has ruled out Palestinian statehood, continuing its military campaign against Hamas in Gaza. Local health authorities report more than 65,000 Palestinian deaths since the October 2023 attacks on Israel, which killed some 1,200 people. A ground offensive into Gaza City is now underway with little prospect of a ceasefire. Other leaders also lent support. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, and UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres all stressed urgency before the two-state solution disappears entirely. Over 3/4 of UN members already recognize Palestine, including Luxembourg, Malta, Belgium, and Monaco, who joined this week. Yet full UN membership requires Security Council approval, where the United States retains veto power. In Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has promised a response after meeting President Donald Trump in Washington next week, while far-right members of his cabinet continue pressing for annexation of parts of the West Bank. President Trump has sharply condemned the wave of Western recognition for a Palestinian state, calling it a reward to Hamas, and claiming such moves only embolden extremists and undermine Israeli security. At the White House, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt reiterated Trump's belief that recognizing Palestine at this stage does nothing to advance peace or secure the release of Israeli hostages still held in Gaza. As he prepares to address the United Nations General Assembly, Trump is set to criticize what he calls globalist institutions and warn allies that coordinated recognition of Palestinian statehood constitutes appeasement in the face of continued Hamas control of Gaza. Meanwhile, Germany is breaking ranks with the UK, Canada, Australia, and other Western states that have granted recognition. Chancellor Friedrich Merz's government insists now is not the right step. Berlin's position is that recognition should be the final outcome of a negotiated two-state solution, not a gesture that precedes it. Foreign Minister Wadeful and Chancellor Merz have stressed the need for a genuine peace process, opposing any action that risks undermining negotiations. Germany, balancing its historic commitment to Israel with criticism of Netanyahu's Gaza campaign, maintains that any Palestinian state must result from direct talks between Israel and the Palestinian Authority, not as a result of Hamas's actions. Although political pressure is growing at home and from European partners, Germany's leadership is standing firm, counselling restraint, demanding both sides avoid actions like annexation or violence, and calling for stability before statehood is recognised. In sum, while Europe diverges, Trump maintains a hard line and Germany urges a return to diplomacy over symbolism, framing statehood as a matter for future negotiation, not for immediate international endorsement. In 2014, Sweden became the first Western European country to recognise the State of Palestine, a step that carried symbolic weight but little practical impact on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Stockholm does not maintain an embassy in Ramallah, instead operating through its Jerusalem consulate, where Swedish diplomats rely on Israeli accreditation and security arrangements. A decade later, more European governments have followed. Spain, Norway, Slovenia and Ireland recognised Palestine in 2024, again with limited effect on the ground. This year, Britain, Australia, Canada and Portugal joined them, the first G7 countries to take the step. According to an AFP tally, at least 145 of 193 UN member states now recognise Palestine. Russia, China, India, and almost all Arab, African and Latin American countries are on that list. Algeria was the first, acting within minutes of the Palestinian Declaration of Independence in 1988. Several waves of recognition followed in the early 1990s and again around 2010. Roughly 45 countries still withhold recognition, including the United States, Israel, Japan, South Korea, and most of Oceania. Europe remains divided. Germany and Italy insist recognition should come only as part of a negotiated two-state settlement. Hungary and the Czech Republic, though once part of the Eastern Bloc, also reject unilateral recognition. For supporters, the significance is less about immediate change than about numbers. Recognition by Britain and France means that 4 permanent members of the Security Council, China, Russia, France and the UK, accept Palestine's statehood, leaving the United States increasingly isolated. Critics counter that recognition is largely symbolic. As legal scholars note, recognition alone does not create a state, but it shapes international norms and may influence future diplomacy.